Welcome back to the Rich Dad Radio Show, where we are talking about the good news and the bad news about flipping real estate. I am your host, Brent Daniels, and on today's episode, I have an incredible couple out of Columbus, Ohio that flipped over 280 properties last year. They're going to break down how they started, how they grew their business, and how they close so many incredible deals month in and month out. So here we go. Welcome to the podcast, Tiffany and Josh High out of Columbus, Ohio. How are you guys?
Awesome. Thanks for having us on, Brent.
Brent, what's going on, man? We're excited to be on.
Listen, you guys are known around the country, around the industry as being some of the best, not only helping people really grow their businesses, but actually doing these deals yourself. So 2024, what was kind of the volume of business? How many flips, how many wholesale deals, how many properties did you add to your portfolio? Give me the rundown.
So last year in 2024, we were able to lock up 280 contracts. Generally, our quarter one, quarter two, and quarter three, it was 60% flip, 40% wholesale. Going into quarter four, this is a strategy we talk about every year leading into quarter four because properties sit longer. So we shift that, and it was actually about 26 or 27% flip, and the remainder was wholesale. We picked up just a handful of rentals. I want to say it was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 at tops. We have a small rental portfolio of about like 40, 42-ish single family houses. So nothing crazy there, but we do have a focus on some of the long-term wealth building strategies like that. But ultimately the bread and butter for us is in the wholesaling and flipping space.
I love how 40 plus rentals is a small portfolio. Like people listening to this are going to be like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. You own 40 properties.
Well, if we would have held, even a fraction of them over the last 10 years, maybe we'd be retired by now. So, but that's all right.
Why not? Why didn't you? That's a great question.
I was always, I had a lot of friends in the industry that I think over leveraged themselves too early. And I just had this mindset when about 10 years ago, I think I was 30, I put a goal written down on paper and said, here's how much cash I'm going to have in the bank. Here's everything that I want in order before I just go highly leverage upon a bunch of rentals. And I just stuck to the plan. I didn't chase shiny objects along the journey. And I just never really wanted to be in that position. I always believe cash is king. So, if something happened in the market, we'd be ready. That's kind of the position I wanted to take on it.
It's so smart. I see people getting into the industry and maybe it's their first few years and they haven't really gone through a cycle. And when you go through a cycle, you really learn a lot. You really learn that things can change really fast. 30, 60, 90 days, the market's different, right? And especially when you're wholesaling or flipping, interest rates, we saw it in 22 go up, and then all of a sudden properties were sitting a lot longer. Strategies had to change. This happens all the time, typically once every 10 years. Sometimes it's twice every 10 years. And so just being able to have that cash is so critical.
Yep.
Because that's who survives, right?
Yep. So I just never wanted to be, I'm kind of a cash hoarder. I'm trying to fix that problem. So
Good. I think it's smart. So 200, how do you find 280 deals? What do you guys do for lead generation?
So we're very big believers on diversifying our lead sources. And the reason for that is because it just takes, Google or Facebook or something to change their algorithm. And all of a sudden, if you're relying on just one channel, your entire lead flow dries up overnight. So we have several different lead channels. I'll break down some of the biggest ones, the highest performing for us. Last year, direct mail produced 130 contracts for us, and it was by far our best. So we've been, the philosophy is like test and measure and see what's performing and then pour fuel on that fire. And then for the ones that start to dry up a little bit, we pull back those budgets and we pour them into what's working best. And this is an ongoing thing that we look at every single week and every single month. After that, TV was our second highest. We had PPC, pay per lead, as well as free sources, things like buying on the MLS, things like buying from other wholesalers as well.
Yeah, we run about 9 to 10 different channels at a time. And when I say channel, you could have maybe 3 pay per lead companies, right? Going on at a time or whatever. So, And I would say when I say 9 to 10, sometimes that intimidates people, but half of those are free. So like direct to agent, direct to wholesaler, fire damage houses, all that. And one thing I think at our size, when people start getting past 10 plus deals a month, that people have to get really good at is just really optimization. So I think what our industry tends to be a little bit famous is they, learn a marketing channel off of a guru like me or you or YouTube, and they go to their bank account and they're like, oh, I'll take this 10 grand over here and throw it at it and see what happens. Instead of actually saying, here's my goal and reverse engineering it from there. And the bigger you get, it gets more and more important for you to prioritize re-looking at your budget and your lead costs, your contract costs, and moving money all the time. And so when people ask us like, hey, what are you spending money on? It could be different 30 days from now. Just because we're always shifting money based on where it makes sense.
Well, I love it. There's three ways to get leads, right? You buy them through marketing, right? You earn them through being really proactive. You talk about going on the MLS and reaching out to wholesalers. Sometimes people bid at auctions. Some people knock doors or they make cold calls. And then you've got referrals, right? Those are the three main channels that you can get, you find really great opportunities. And you guys are doing all of them, right?
Yep.
How long have you been in business?
Almost 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Longer than
10
that
years.
with rentals, but wholesaling and flipping, I think it's been about a decade.
And what did you start with 10 years ago? Because it'd be interesting to see this evolution.
Back in the
First one
day.
was direct mail.
Was it?
The very first lead source that we launched was direct mail.
It's funny, man. I remember still to this day handwriting those things till like 4 in the morning every night.
Well, honestly,
those little handwritten notes.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of what Tiff just mentioned there. We were handwriting 100 letters
every
week.
Yeah.
And then we wondered why it took us so long to get our first deal. Well, it's because if you reverse engineer it, taking your response rate, how many call-ins you have to get in order to get a deal, it all made sense. We just didn't know that information when we pressed go.
Yeah. So back in the day when we first started, we were handwriting letters, we were dialing on our cell phones, we were texting on our cell phones, we were door knocking, just did whatever it took back in the day.
Yeah, but I look back on all the times that I was doing the exact same thing. I was door knocking. I was just cold calling, like literally just dialing on my phone. I was sending those handwritten notes with little business cards that I would like print out at my mom's house. All of these things, I look back fondly. There's nostalgia to that because that was really the start. That was the momentum that got the train going down the tracks a little bit. You know what I mean? When you guys look back on that, how do you feel?
I mean, in a way,
glad it's over.
Yeah, in a way, Brent, I think you can appreciate this. When you lift weights or if you're doing manual labor, you start to build calluses on your hands, right? And that experience starts to build calluses for you as an entrepreneur that kind of hardens your personality because business is not easy. It's not always sunshine and roses. We've got to start to condition ourselves for those tough times, build those calluses so that way when they do come, we can push through it and get to our breakthrough.
Yeah, that's why the rhino is our mascot, right? Having that thick skin to be an entrepreneur, especially a real estate entrepreneur, because you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. But, the biggest expense we have in our business are our emotions. Because our emotions make us do silly things and hallucinate silly things. They do, right? And if you have a thick skin and you have a lot of reps and you have a lot of experience and you're building your skills, you understand that, every conversation you have is building to an offer, building to an opportunity. And maybe it'll take you 100 conversations, 200 conversations when you're starting out, but then all of a sudden you get better and better and better, and you get to really refine your processes to where you guys are at now.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And now you have 9 marketing channels.
Exactly. That's what it's become. Obviously it didn't happen overnight, but absolutely. And something else that you mentioned there is as you go through those reps and you build that skill set, even if the beautiful thing is the person that you become in that process, because if we lost everything, the one thing no one can ever take from you is the skills that you developed through that experience. So your ability to go back and build it twice as fast, 10 times as fast, because you have the skills, we have to appreciate that as well.
Awesome. What's the name of your company?
Heels Homes, HEELS.
How'd you come up with it?
Well, it used to be named something else, and then one of my mentors, after I'd hired one, was like, "That is way too long. You need something catchier, and the URL needs to be available." And I used to close deals in heels all the time when I was still working at my job, and I was just sitting there one day, and I was like, "Oh, heels." I was looking down at them. I was like, "Well, Heels Homes is available, so I'm going to go ahead and buy that."
And
So
it's
now that
worked.
my last name's High, we always make a joke about when are we going to start calling it High Heel Homes.
Nice. Do it. Test it out. See if you get more calls.
Yeah.
So direct mail is letters and postcards.
We do a mixture. The biggest, most volume that the piece that we've sent the most absolutely was check mailers last year. Um, just historically, it's performed the best for us. And then what you have after sending mail for so long, you start to experience what I call list exhaustion. So there's a specific way that you want to manage your data to make sure that you don't run into that, because out of nowhere, your response rates one month will plummet. And that could be detrimental. That's going back to the concept, like I mentioned. It just takes one bad month or list exhaustion or Google changed their algorithm, Facebook changed their algorithm, and all of a sudden your leads dry up. So that was something that we had ran into in 2024, and we figured out a way to manage our data to make sure we weren't running into that and just exhausting that same list.
So how many mailers do you send out a month?
Generally, it's like 100 to 120,000 pieces a month.
Wow, 120,000, 100 to 120,000. How many calls do you typically get from that?
Generally on a weekly basis, it's like 110 to 130, 110 to 130 call-ins that we get on a weekly basis.
Now, the way that we do it, we're sending. We just started sending those check letters, and for anybody that doesn't know, you get a list, and I think that the company goes and they pull like the Zillow Zestimate, and then it's a percentage of that Zestimate, or it's a percentage of the tax assessor value, and it's a literal check that you send to people, and it goes out to them. And then it's just made for them to. I mean, it's designed for them to give you a call.
Right.
And so we've been doing that. But the way that we have it is when it comes in, Josh, we have a call rail service where it's like press 1 to get your cash offer, press 2 to be removed from the list. Do you guys have that?
No, we don't have an IVR. It goes straight to our sales team. And the reason why we do that
Right.
is because if someone's somewhat on the fence, if they hear an IVR, our philosophy is that they're going to opt out before they would opt in. They're more likely to opt out. So we want that to go not just to our lead intake. We want it to go to our closers, our acquisition specialists.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have lead managers, we have closers, acquisition specialists. It goes straight to the closer so that way they can work that opportunity. Someone calling it who's on the phone for us is the hottest opportunity that we could generate. So we want to make sure that's in the right hands.
So you answer all the calls live?
Every single one, yeah.
What
Within
about at
reason. If it's 2 a.m.,
9:38 p.m.?
So we have coverage in the company from at least 9 a.m. to about 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a whole rotation model with our team. And if the team or the person who is on call can answer it before or after that, they will. And honestly, like if you look at, and I don't know the data today, but when I looked at this when we looked at just PPL, for example, over 50% of the contracts that we lock up come from opt-ins after 10 p.m. and before 8 a.m. And so my team just knows like the later that they are, the hotter they are typically. So as long as they're available, they're going to answer it. They're not required to, though.
What about weekends?
We have a rotation where someone's on call every weekend.
So important. I just implemented this last year. Joshua joined my team, and he takes from 6 p.m. up until 7 a.m., Monday through Friday, and then all weekends. And my business exploded. I mean, he added at least another, 800,000 to our business last year just because we had that coverage. Because if you're going to send a letter to somebody and they call you, you better answer that live.
Oh, yeah.
You better answer it live. And so we just have it to where press 1 for this and 2 for this, because so many of those calls obviously are, don't you send me this trash? Do you see a for sale sign in my yard? How dare you send me this price on this check for this, blah, right? And just remove me from and that goes to like a little call center. center, and they remove it all so that my acquisition team can just focus on the people that want offers. But I'll tell you what, they still press one for a cash offer and chew us out.
Yeah.
So is that guy overseas or stateside?
Everybody stateside.
Okay, and they just take the third shift there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. He lives right here. He lives in Mesa, Arizona. He's hungry. You know what I mean? And the beautiful thing is, if a lead comes in and we call it junior acquisition manager, Chad, he takes all the inbound and then sends it to my closer, Ryan. If they're both on the phone, it goes to Joshua. So Joshua's kind of just around all the time, available all the time.
Yeah, kind of
And
like
so
a fail-safe
we have
safety
coverage.
net. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I like
It,
that.
it's so important. If you're going to do marketing, if you're going to spend money to have people call you when they want to sell their house, you have to answer it live, and you have to put your best people on it, in my opinion.
I 100% agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
So when you guys get a lead in, how do you determine if you want to wholesale it versus flip it?
Great question. So at the end of the day, we're going to take the cash conversion cycle into consideration, and that changes by quarter. Quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, for the most part, we're going to be a lot heavier on the flip side. Now, leading into quarter four, and this, you mentioned in quarter four of 2022, interest rates doubled. And we started to see that our properties that were listed, our rehabs, they were sitting longer and longer. And as they were sitting longer, the offers that we would end up getting would be just complete lowballs because they thought we were desperate. And at the time, we were desperate. So we started taking these lowball offers. And then January 1st hits, and it's like a whole new market. And in that experience, we learned we shouldn't take those lower offers. We should really hold our posture a little bit longer, wait if we can until January, because we know every single year this cycle happens. So with that being said, we can start to predict based on the average days on market. These are the things that we look at. What's the average days on market in this specific area? How much competition do we have active listings right now? And then based on our days on market, we can start to predict how many times we're going to take a price reduction. The longer it sits, not only are we taking price reductions to drive traffic, but we're also seeing that, again, these buyers, they want to try to lowball you the longer it sits on the market. So then we have this negotiation where we land somewhere in the middle. So we have an equation that we plug in, and we're able to see, okay, if we plan to make 30 on this house, we might actually make 15. So if I can wholesale a property and make 15 in that area, in that circumstance, I'm going to take the 15 today versus going through the longer cash conversion cycle just to make the same amount, or even worse, make a little bit less. So that's how we evaluate everything. It's what is that specific neighborhood showing us for the days on market, the competition, and what can we project we'll actually make when the project's said and done versus wholesaling it now.
And are you looking to make triple what you would on a flip than you would on a wholesale?
I
Like
think
what,
a
what
lot
is
of
the
times,
metric there?
yeah, a lot of times when it comes to flipping and wholesaling, typically the flips, like there isn't even a spread to wholesale it most times. And so I always give the concept of like, if you spend 10,000 on marketing and I spend 10,000 and we're both one man shows or whatever, or we have the same size team, we have the same offer, the same data, the same marketing, the same spend, but I flip and wholesale and you only wholesale, I'm more than likely going to make 2 to 3 times, if not more than that, than you. And it's because I can monetize the leads. And what's really important is that folks get really good at monetizing both retail, referring to agents, taking commission off of them, rehabbing and wholesaling. Because if you're primarily only wholesaling, at some point as you grow the company, your overhead's not going to make sense to the revenue.
Right.
Just because like most deals, they're like, we're typically flipping it just because there is no spread to wholesale it.
But you're still making something on it, which means that your top line is going to be higher than if somebody's just assigning every deal.
Correct.
Or wholesaling every deal.
Yep.
Right.
Love it. Josh, you said cash conversion cycle. Break that down. What does that mean?
Tiff does an awesome job of explaining this.
That means from the time I spend money today to the time I receive money back in the bank. And a lot of times what people do is they'll throw money at a marketing channel and they'll freak out when they don't get like instant gratification. And each channel has a cash conversion cycle. And in our KPI reporting, we have a cash conversion cycle broken up by not only just the marketing channel, but inbound versus outbound channels. So we also categorize them to figure out big picture what's happening and then buy every channel. And so I always give this example of like direct mail. Let's say today I decide I'm going to send 10,000 mailers. So I go to my mail house, I drop 10,000 times, let's say it's a 40-cent postcard, so $4,000. And then it takes a week just for like proofs to get approved, all that. And then if we send 10,000 mailers, we're dividing it by 4 so that we don't get hit all at once. And so let's just say there's 4 hits, what I call them, over the next 30 days. And so now we're 5 or 6 weeks out before the last hit even hits the doorstep. And then from there, on average, our sellers either, leave their mail in their mailbox or their front table for an average of 29 days. And then they finally call us. And so we're looking at another 30 days to wholesale it, or 3 to 4 months to rehab it. And so we're looking at anywhere from a 3 to 5.5 month cash conversion cycle, depending on if we're wholesaling or rehabbing. And what a lot of people do is they'll just like say, oh, Tiffany and Josh, do you go to direct mail? I'm going to go test it. And then they freak the hell out in 30 days if it's not working, but they're really just not even giving it time to live itself out.
Got it. What's your fastest cash conversion cycle marketing channel?
It's TV by far.
TV.
TV, it typically is almost a 2-day from lead to contract. And then from there, it's, if you're wholesaling it within 30 days, if you're rehabbing it, another tack on 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, TV's fast.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about, you run commercials.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, our fastest, I mean, TV would be number one because they're just ready to go right now. But right there is PPC for us.
Yep.
Right there. Like, we're out the next day or two. I mean, we're trying to get out the same day, obviously, as quick as possible, because time kills all deals. Listen to me, everybody that is listening to this. Time kills all deals. Go out there, get that deal as quickly as you can, or it'll just slip through your fingers. Would you guys agree?
100%. I was going to say, you can say that 3 times over.
Yeah.
It's so true. We say it in our office.
That is amazing. So, you have how many people on your team?
We have 8, not including Tiff and myself. So we have 5 people on the acquisitions team. There's 3. We will use the term closer, also known as acquisition specialist, also known as acquisition manager. So we have 3 of those, and then we have 2 what we call follow-up specialists, also known as lead manager, also known as a setter. Now, one of those follow-up specialists is what we call a hybrid. So very similar to your guy, if our 3 closers are on the phone with someone, he is trained and capable to take them through the sales process, present an offer, and lock up the deal himself. But his first look is to always qualify and then live transfer it if someone's available.
Well, and 90 to 95% of your deals are done without going to the house?
Exactly, yes.
How is that possible?
Well,
it's a house. You got to see what's going on in the house. You got to look under the floorboards. You got to look at the roof. You got to see what's going on with the boiler or the air conditioning unit. You got to look at the basement. You got to look at these things, right? You can't possibly make an offer on somebody's house before going there and seeing it, right?
Yeah, I can appreciate where you're coming from. And we had the same exact mindset when we first got into the real estate space. And, I follow Tony Robbins a lot, and I love a lot of his philosophies. And he says, if you change your question, you change your results. And so I knew that other people were locking these houses up over the phone. And I started to ask myself, well, why is it that I can't do that? Why do I believe that I can't do that? And it was all the reasons you just said. I've got to see the furnace. I've got to see if there's foundation issues. I've got to see if there's termite damage, all of these things. And then I started to ask myself, well, how could I make this happen? Well, if I ask the seller, do you know of any foundation issues? And they tell me no, then I can factor that into my offer. So we ask a series of questions to get that information. And it's not a matter of, is your roof in good condition? It's how old is your roof? We're comparing all of these things to the life cycles. That way we can determine if it needs replaced or not. Now, we take the seller's word for it when we make our offer, but then after we go into contract, we actually have an inspection period where we get in and we verify it's everything that they told us. And if they just simply were not truthful, and go figure, sellers are not always telling the truth, but if they don't tell you the truth, then now it's grounds for renegotiation. We actually have a very high success rate with our renegotiation. It's above 50% for the last 2 quarters of 2024. So we'll take those chances all day, every day.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have to do it very often. When we ask property condition questions, we're very specific around, for example, let's just say we're asking about the kitchen. We don't just say, "Oh, is your kitchen updated?" We say, "Hey, describe your counters. Are they formica, granite, or quartz? Okay. Are your cabinets oak, white, shaker, or metal? Is your floors tile, this or that? Are your appliances white, stainless steel, or black?" Like when you get that granular in how you ask the questions, our acquisition managers, they build full scope of works off of their sales calls, and so they put their repair estimate into the system. And it's very rare, unless a seller like legitimately lies about something big, that we're off by more than 3 to 5% on an entire scope of work off of the phone call.
Yep.
And then once we lock up the deal, every contract has a 21-day inspection with a 30-day close minimum. And we've never had issues with that. We have a very clear process that the TC has, sets up the stage so that we can get into the property 2 to 3 times. And when we go through, we send out a licensed inspector with our GC's project manager. And so, I mean, Josh and I have been flipping hundreds of houses for years, and we haven't stepped foot in a flip in over 5 years, probably. And so what we do is to kickstart the project, the licensed inspector goes out, and we have a 1-page shortened inspection sheet that we've trained them on. And then we have our project manager, he builds a scope of work. So instead of having us, because some people are like, "Well, I need to see the property." And I'm like, "Okay, well, would you rather a project manager who builds scopes all day and a licensed inspector build that scope of work versus you? Because there'll be a lot less change orders then." And so once we started leveraging experts in the field was when like our rehabs became way more consistent, on budget, done on time, less change orders. And it saved our time because we don't have to go to the property. And so we negotiated a rate with the inspector, project manager. Then what happens is the scope of work comes to us with the license report, and we evaluate, ask questions between the two to say, okay, do we want to rehab this or wholesale it? And if we want to wholesale it, now we have all the assets to equip the buyers to make better decisions. And we've built like tons of credibility for ourselves in the marketplace, having license reports. You can move deals way faster. A lot of times you can move them sight unseen because you're equipping the buyer with everything they need to make a decision. And
Yep.
so instead of sending out emails like, back in the day when I first got started saying like cosmetic work needed or cosmetic work only or something, we're giving them specifics that they need to go do. So, and on top of that, because we provide them with so much material, buyers like drool over opening our stuff. So we notice more and more that we have a lot more buyer engagement, like trying to bid on our deals just because they know that we're giving them enough stuff to make an informational decision.
Yeah.
So,
So you get an inspection every deal?
yes.
Every deal. And it's a 1-page inspection, you said? I mean,
It's like
summary?
a 1 to 2 page license report. It's not like your big retail. They do all
Right.
the major mechanicals. Like they're not going on turning on every single faucet in every outlet.
Right.
But they're looking at all the major mechanicals. And then they give us like 100 to 150 photos. And then we pair that with the scope of work, and we look line item by line item to say, hey, GC, like over here, the license inspection report says there's maybe 3 years left on the hot water tank. Why didn't you put that on the scope of work? And they'll be like, because it's working. We didn't think it needed it. But then now we have the decision to make of license report says this, and this. Do we just want to go ahead and add it to the scope now?
Got it. Do you do the inspection and then send out your contractor?
So we
Or
do
do
them
they
at
go
the same time. So they both go out. They both then conversate while they're out there, which is good because they're helping each other build the scope. And then what happens is when our TC sets the original call. So let's just say I'm the acquisition manager. I send it to the TC. They make their first TC seller intro call. It's like, hey, this is Tiffany. I'm the transaction coordinator for Heels Homes. Build some rapport. Hey, I would like to walk you through how the inspection process works with us. And before she even makes the call, we send a transaction coordinating branded packet that explains the process, saves our stuff, and then it adds more trust and rapport. And then from there, we say, hey, we have typically 2 to 3 walkthroughs. Let me walk you through why. The first walkthrough is going to be someone from our team and our project manager. They're going to come through. They'll be about 30 minutes. They're going to take photos, fill out a report. They're going to bring that to our office. And then what happens next is they give that to our general contractor, our GC. You might be thinking, hey, why isn't he coming out on the first walkthrough? And then we laugh when we say this. We'll say, but ever since COVID, I'm sure you can understand, our GCs have found our short labor. They can't find people that want to work for a living. And so they now require this in the marketplace that we give them as much information as possible. So when they come walk it, they're in and out,
Sure.
and they have to finalize a scope. Now, the only time we have to get a third person through, ma'am, is if they get there and they see there's 5 layers of shingles or a foot long crack in the basement, and then we have to get basement doctor or roofing contractor out. That's rare, but just in case, they'll have to get an actual subcontractor to finalize the scope. And we're happy to share those details with you as well if that's the case. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, makes sense. And then we never have issues having 2 or 3 walkthroughs because of it.
Josh, what happens when you're on the phone with the seller and they're like, oh, this other guy, Brent Daniels, said that he'll buy it with no inspection?
So we have a multiple offer process that we'll initiate immediately. The moment we find out there's multiple investors that are talking to the seller, the first thing that we do is we try to identify if there's a premium price that they'll accept. Sometimes we'll get a premium price from the seller, and when we do, we've got to decide, is this something worth taking control of the contract right now or not? If for some reason that doesn't work for us, then we've got 3 other things that we can look at. Those 3 other things are, first and foremost, if the seller, this one only works if the seller's asking for a price that's ridiculously low. And here's an example. We had a duplex here in Columbus. The gentleman wanted $32,000. He was getting 5 offers, then making a decision. It was in an area that I knew I was not the buyer. I was only going to be able to wholesale this. And I knew I could probably sell it around the $84,000 to $87,000 range. So there was a lot of meat on the bone here. And since he was taking 5 offers, we got in and we kind of played the game here a little bit, where we got in and then we made what seemed like a ridiculously high offer to this person. So he's asking $32,000, already had an offer for $37,000. I knew I wasn't going to be the best buyer for this thing. So we came in and offered like $72,000 or $76,000, and he jumped on it immediately. And we were able to cut out the competition because of how quick we were able to work coming in at such a premium price. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness he did, because he called us back 30 minutes later and said, I already have a higher offer. Can I back out of this? And we said, no. And we have a talk track that we take people through for those situations. Sure. But we were able to move the deal. And so that's one of the strategies if they don't take the premium price. The second one is we might play the game. And the game is where we get in. This is where we think that we might be able to land a deal where there's more than our minimum profit requirement. And since we've already asked the premium price, we know if someone gets into the house before us, they're not going to take the first offer that they get. Right. And a lot of times people will try to go out and be the first one to the house, thinking that they can make an offer, strike a deal, and cut all the competition out. Yep. Well, because we've already stress tested that, asking for the premium price, and if they were, nope, not going to happen, not going to give you a price, I need 3 offers, and only taking 3 offers, then we know that that's not going to happen. So we want to be last. When we go in last, now we're asking them, have you gotten any offers? Typically, it's like 50% of the buyers already made their offer, trying to take it and snipe it away, while others are playing the game too, and they're going back and running their numbers. Well, then we're going to find out when they're making their decision, and then 10 minutes before their decision-making time period, we're going to tell them, hey, I'm going to go talk to the partners right now. Where do we need to be ultimately in order to win the opportunity to work with you? And then the last one is where we're literally just going to make our absolute best offer. And if someone beats us at the end of the day, then you're just better than us. And that's been our approach, and that process has worked really well for us.
But if they're like totally anti you bringing an inspector into the house.
Oh, I see. What we'll do as a part of this, when we play the game or when we make our absolute best offer, we're waiving all contingencies, including the inspection. So we get into the house prior to structuring that deal in those scenarios.
Got it. Yep. So you're getting eyes on the house, at least getting some idea of what's going on.
Yeah. If I have to, because push come to shove, I'm only accepting your offer. Let's say the seller says, I'm only accepting your offer if you waive this inspection contingency. We will get in it. We will verify it. If we have to, we'll get our contractor in it. We'll get all of our numbers, and then we'll solidify everything at that point, waiving all contingencies.
Awesome. Tiffany, speak to somebody that this is their first day as a real estate entrepreneur. This is day one. What should they be doing for the first 90 days of this journey? You know what I mean? Like a lot of people they're going to hear this, they're going to be excited, they're going to see, oh my gosh, I heard this podcast by Tiffany and Josh High. They did 280 deals. They're making millions. They're doing incredible things. I'm starting day one. They're like this goal that I have, but I don't know what I should do to be able to like be on that path.
Yeah. If I could go back, I wish someone would have told me this. I happened to be in a program when I first got started that wasn't really well known for acquisitions. And at the end of the day, if you don't have the deal, nothing else matters. And so when I had originally gotten in the game, people were like, "Oh, you got to raise money, you got to do all these things." I'm like, "None of that matters if I don't have the deal, right?" And
Yep.
so if I could go back in time, I would have just gotten a list and got on the phone and mastered sales, because so many people don't take the time to truly onboard themselves into acquisitions the right way. And what happens is they'll go blow money on marketing, they ruin opportunities, and it just destroys morale. So if I could go back, I wish someone would have just onboarded me in sales, gave me a list, and I just press go, start dialing, and smile and dial, because ultimately you got to get the reps in. And I mean, if you think about it, like when we bring someone in to be a closer for our team, we don't recruit anyone with real estate experience. And so these guys come in with they don't even know what wholesaling is. They don't know what flipping houses is. We have a 14-day onboarding program. And on average, our closers lock up 5 to 7 deals within the first 30 days on the phones. And so if someone would have just onboarded me for 2 weeks when I first started, I probably could have done the same on my own. But I just kind of wung it when it came to really like a good sales process back in the day.
Yeah, but Josh, it's scary talking to strangers about real estate if you've never bought a house, if you've never flipped a house, if you've never wholesaled a house, if you don't know what to ask, you don't know what to say, you don't know, you're going to screw it all up. So how do you have any confidence at all to like get pushed out of the nest, so to speak?
Yeah, that's the importance of having a time-tested sales process in place that gives you those types of questions. It gives you, when someone says this is how you rebuttal this objection, or this is how you objection block, or all of those skill sets that are required. And ultimately, people have the benefit of being able to learn from someone like you, or learn from someone like us on the mistakes that we did make and how we've optimized our sales processes and our conversations to lead to a predictable outcome. So ultimately, you have to master sales and then lock into a time tested sales process. That way, you're not doing any of the guesswork.
I love it. Thank you guys. What you guys have a incredible ebook that is going to save people a lot of what I call stupid tax.
Yeah,
Right?
we always get asked like all these questions about all of our failures over the days, and we've had a lot of them, a lot of six-figure mistakes. So I finally made a ebook on 26 of the biggest mistakes I did while scaling. Everything from hiring mistakes to marketing mistakes, money mistakes. And then I wrote like little stories of what happened and then what did I do to overcome them so that other people don't run into the same problem. But it's at rdebook.com. So RD for results driven, ebook.com.
I love it. I'm going to get it today. rdebook.com.
Yep.
Guys, check that out. Can people follow you on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on whatever?
Yep.
Vine? I guess Vine's not around, but
Yeah, we're mainly more active on Instagram. So it's Tiffany High Official is mine, and Josh's is Josh High Official.
awesome. Any final thoughts, guys?
Nope. I mean, if you're listening to this, if you have a newer audience, I just wish someone back in the day would have looked at me and said, just get really good at one thing. And I know people get caught up in like chasing all these different ways to do real estate, but when you're newer to the game, like just get really good at one thing for now.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and one of my favorite sayings from my coach at the University of Toledo. I know we were talking before we jumped on here. I did play football at the University of Toledo, but they would always tell us to trust the process. And there's a process to winning, and we believe that is learn, do, become. So
Yep.
learn the things like, let's talk sales, learn the sales skills, then go execute and implement on them, and then you'll start to get the results that you want. But far too often people skip the learning or they skip the doing and they expect the results. So trust the process, learn what you need to learn, go do the things that you learn in order to get the results that you want.
Amazing. And Tiffany, I can't imagine how many people come up to you on a daily basis and just like, you are so lucky to marry that
Oh
hunky college football player. What a
yeah.
stud.
He remembers like literally every inch of every play in football, but he can't remember to take out the trash. So
Well, you know, priorities,
Priorities, I guess, right?
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. You guys check them out on Instagram and also go to rdebook.com. rdebook.com. Thank you guys so much for being on here.
Thanks,
all right,
Brent.
thanks, Brent.
What an incredible episode that was with Josh and Tiffany High. If you are interested in joining the most proactive community in real estate investing, I want you to go to richdadpro.com. richdadpro.com. We talked about on this episode scripts and how to get started and what to say and how to be confident when we are communicating with property owners. It's all there and so much more. We've got in-person events. We've got community calls every single week, and we have the most and best investors in one place. Check it out, richdadpro.com.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.